Welcome to the California Garden. It's January 2022, and in today's episode, we have Bountiful Harvests, a tour of our California garden, some things for you to do this month, and a whole lot more. So let's begin with the harvests we made this month. Beginning with broccoli. We had this Bonnie broccoli variety growing in containers. There are 2 of these growing, and you can see we got some really good broccoli harvest from just these plants in the container. And here you can look at a harvest, beautiful looking broccoli head. And we were also growing broccoli in our raised beds. So these are transplants, and as you can see, they have already yielded some beautiful looking broccoli crowns. And the best thing about broccoli is that they will keep producing crowns on the side, which you can keep harvesting throughout the season. And here's a harvest again, beautiful looking broccoli grown right in your home garden. Cabbage. We were growing the red acre cabbage, and we have a lot of cabbages growing. This is one of them that was growing in the raised bed. And you can see the cabbage is not huge, but it's really good. It has a very nice color. The red or the purple color that you see denotes a lot of anthocyanins in the plant, which means it's very healthy for you. It has a lot of vitamins and minerals. So growing colorful plants like these and eating them are a good way to maintain good health. Guavas. We have our white tropical guava plant growing in the ground in the corner. And as you can see, these fruits look absolutely delicious now. They've started ripening, and we had a lot of fruits on our guava tree. You can see one harvest here, beautiful looking guavas, and we were harvesting guavas every few days from this plant. Now, one of our viewers also wanted me to show how this guava looks like from the inside. And as you can see, the guava has a white flesh. It has seeds, but the seeds are very soft. These seeds are absolutely soft. And this is a semi-sweet guava, not as sweet as the Arabian guava, but it really is a very nice tasting guava and something that you will enjoy growing in your home garden. Kale. We had a lot of kale greens growing on our raised bed, and the best thing about kale is that the more you harvest, the more the plant will produce. It will keep producing more kale leaves, and as you can see here, we have beautiful looking kale. There's hardly any signs of pest or disease on this kale plant. And the reason is that we added a lot of worm castings in this raised bed. Now, adding worm castings improves the plant's resistance to insects and pests. And you can see here the harvest. Beautiful looking kale, ready for making some kale salad. Fenugreek or methi. We were growing our fenugreek greens in a small tub on the corner of the garden. And due to the rains we had some really heavy rains. A lot of these seeds got dislodged, and you can still see that we got a few fenugreek greens from this little container which is in the corner of our garden. And you can look at the harvest here, beautiful looking greens, and I will be growing these greens as a cover crop this season. Mustard spinach. The mustard spinach is a type of spinach that has a flavor of mustard. Now, the flavor of mustard is a little light, it's just a hint of a mustard flavor, but this mustard spinach plant was one of our most prolific growing spinach plants. As you can see, the leaves are amazing, and this is an excellent variety to grow in containers. As you can see, we have been growing this in containers. And look at our harvest here, beautiful looking mustard spinach. And the best part about growing mustard spinach is that it will keep producing leaves, you can keep harvesting the leaves, and the plant will keep producing more. So all in all, it was a joy to grow this plant this month. And in the cold season, when a lot of plants are not growing very well, this mustard spinach plant was growing really well. And just look at the greens here, beautiful looking greens, beautiful looking harvest. Pineapples. We were growing pineapples in a container, and you have seen us harvesting pineapple almost every month from this plant here in the container. And this is a beautiful looking pineapple, as you can see here. we have had so many pineapples grow in this small container that we were quite amazed with how many pineapples this plant produced eventually. And as you can see here, gorgeous looking pineapple. And this is how it looks like when it's cut. Beautiful looking pineapple, very sweet because it ripened on the plant. And this was our final pineapple for this season, final harvest. We've harvested all the pineapples from this plant. And the last one here just falls off the stem. And that's a sign that this pineapple is ripe and ready to be eaten. Radish. We were growing a lot of radish varieties. This is the black Spanish radish. Now we planted some in our raised bed, as you can see here. And the ones growing on the raised bed did quite well. You can see these radishes, these black Spanish radishes. Very nice harvest, very pungent radish, very strong taste. Korean radish. This was our first year growing Korean radish and I'm so happy with the results. These Korean radish plants were very easy to grow. They produce absolutely huge radishes, as you can see. And I'll leave a link to the seeds in the video description and the comment below so that you can order these seeds and grow your own Korean radish. All in all, this is a great radish variety. Excellent in taste. It's not as pungent as the black Spanish radish. This has the perfect radish taste. You can make kimchi. You can make a lot of other dishes with this radish. And I was really happy to grow the Korean radish. You can see the harvest here. Beautiful looking Korean radish. We were also growing the Minoways radish in a container. Now the Minoways radish is one of my favorite radish varieties. I grow this every year. You can see why. It produces decent sized radishes and they don't take up a lot of space too. So although they are a little thinner than the Korean radishes, they are quite long. So it's still a very good crop of radish, as you can see. Beautiful looking radish, and once again very easy to grow in containers. If you're planning to grow radish, you should grow them in containers. It's extremely easy. You can get a good crop of radish from a very small space. And you can look at all these radishes, gorgeous looking radishes, and let's wash them up, and this is how they look like. Very beautiful looking Minoways radish. Spinach. We were growing the Indian spinach in multiple places in our yard, and these are some seeds that actually just flew and landed on this container and they grew into plants. And you can look at our harvest here. This is one of the tastiest spinach varieties I've eaten. Tomatoes. We started harvesting tomatoes from our bush glacier tomato plant. As you can see here, this plant survived the winters, but it's towards the end of its growing cycle. So we did harvest these tomatoes. Now, even if the tomatoes are not fully red, you can still harvest them and then ripen them on the shelf. But there were just a few tomatoes remaining here, so we harvested all these tomatoes. And the bush glacier is one of the better tomato varieties I've grown during the cooler months. And our San Marzano tomato was also producing a lot of tomatoes. And December and January are very cold months. Despite that, the San Marzano tomatoes were producing quite a lot. And you can see how many tomatoes are still there on this plant. We kept harvesting these San Marzano tomatoes throughout the growing season of January. Now the San Marzano is an indeterminate tomato. And you can look at the harvest here. Beautiful looking San Marzano tomatoes. And finally, we also harvested a few tomatoes from our bush glacier plant growing in the container as well. Turmeric. January is the month that I harvest turmeric. And the reason is because the turmeric plant has completed its full growing cycle, which is almost about 6 to 8 months. And we started harvesting the turmeric and found that the turmeric plant produced so many tubers that it was almost impossible to harvest them right away. So we started removing the soil and started looking at the tubers below. And as you can see here, the tubers are all over the place below the container. And just look at this turmeric tuber, it's amazing. These rhizomes, they pack in a lot of nutrients. They're extremely good for your health. And as you can see here, these turmeric rhizomes are now beginning to show up. and we will be taking out this whole area of these turmeric rhizomes soon. And you can look at this huge ball of rhizomes for this turmeric plant. Just absolutely gorgeous looking rhizomes, and this is a lot of turmeric for one plant. And I keep saving these rhizomes every year so that I can keep growing turmeric plants. I do have a couple in my greenhouse as well, which grow pretty much throughout the year. And after washing these rhizomes, you can see once all the dirt is gone, you can look at these beautiful turmeric rhizomes. They are just absolutely gorgeous. And once again, they are packed with nutrients, extremely good for health. And what do we do with these? Well, you can eat them raw. We also dry them and make turmeric powder. But there are a lot of uses for turmeric, and it's something that I highly recommend that you grow in your home garden. And now let's begin with the garden tour, starting with the raised beds. In our first raised bed, you can see the onion sets have grown quite large now. Remarkable growth compared to December. And we planted some seed potatoes. Some potatoes that we purchased at a local garden center. And you can see that they haven't sprouted yet. They are just beginning to send out their shoots. And on the trellis, the pole beans haven't been doing that good due to the cold that we have here. And in the next raised bed, we have a lot of brassicas growing. You can see here all the cabbages, the cauliflowers that we planted. They're all doing well now. We did have a few days of high wind, but overall the plants are doing okay, including the radish plants that you see on the corner. And on the next raised bed, we again planted a lot of potatoes, some seed potatoes here that are now beginning to show up, followed by some red acre cabbage and some overwintered pepper plants on the corner. And here you can see some more potato plants. They've all shown up now. They are doing okay. They're just beginning their gardening journey. And on the next raised bed, we again have a lot of brassicas, broccoli plants, very nice looking broccoli plants. And in the whole raised bed, I sowed fenugreek seeds. Now I'll be growing fenugreek greens as a cover crop here in this raised bed. Basically sowing it all around the plants and harvesting them in about 8 weeks or so. By that time, I will have some more spring plants to plant here. So till that time, I will be growing fenugreek greens. You can see some other plants here, the kale looking very beautiful, and something we harvested this month. And on the next raised bed, there are a lot of red acre cabbages growing. They're beginning to mature now. And in the center, we have some purple potatoes that grew from last year's remains, and some spinach. Some onions, these are the bunching onions. They should be ready pretty soon. And some more brassicas here. And on the trellis, we cut down our tindora or the ivy gourd plant. As you can see, completely cut down the ivy gourd so that it starts growing in the next season. In the spring season, this should send out shoots again to have a full plant that will produce ivy gourds. And that completes the tour of our raised bed garden. Let's now move on to the containers. In the first container, we have a couple of broccoli plants growing. We have some atomic red carrots that are growing quite well in the second container. We have the Surajmukhi pepper plant that we overwintered from last year. It's growing okay. It is producing a lot of flowers, so hopefully we'll get some chilies soon. More carrots here. This is the orange carrot variety, followed by some cilantro seeds that I sowed here. So I'm just trying out growing cilantro this way, followed by our bush Roma tomato plant that has grown quite tall but not really producing a lot of tomatoes. We have our taro root plant that's growing okay, followed by cabbages. We just planted these cabbages here. And we have some onions. These are the onions that were started from sets. Doing okay. And we still have to work on this container. Maybe fix the soil first. You can see the cardamom plant behind that looking beautiful. We have our mint plant that came back after we cut it down completely. And we still have to work on this container. This container had the turmeric growing in the previous month. We have our mustard spinach plant. You saw how we harvested a lot of mustard spinach from this plant. We have some collard greens. These collard greens will grow pretty quickly, followed by some bunching onions. We have our Minowa's radish, more Minowa's radish growing here, followed by some overwintered black moon eggplants. One of them is doing okay. We have some hyacinth bean plants that are growing okay now, despite the cold season. And then we have some peas. Now we planted a few peas and they are growing quite well now. The season is getting better for peas. And we have our bush glacier tomato plant that looks a little stressed because of the cold. I also wanted to show you our green stalk planter. In our classic green stalk planter, we have a lot of onions growing. These are onions planted from sets. And you've been seeing the month by month progression on how well these plants are doing. They're doing really well. And I think it will still be a few months before I harvest these onions. In our herb planter, we sowed a lot of beet seeds and they are beginning to show up now. We also have a lot of cilantro that's growing here. So all in all, the herb planter is also quite loaded with all the plants now. And hopefully these will grow into bigger plants very soon. And that concludes the tour of our container garden. And now let's look at some things for you to do this month. This is the perfect time to start your seeds. January is the time you would start your tomatoes, peppers and eggplants. As you can see, I have started some seeds here, some tomatoes. There are some cauliflower seeds here, some okras. And something new for this year, I'm trying to grow black chickpeas. Not sure if I'll be successful or not, but time will tell. But overall, this is the time to start your seeds and make sure that you start your seeds. We have some excellent videos guiding you step by step on how to start your seeds. So make sure that you do check them out. Go!
Well, go and get it. Run.
So there we have it, folks. That was our January 2020 episode for California gardening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button if you did. If you have a question or comment, leave them in the comments box below. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening.